Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you are currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps along your journey. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now, let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Now let's take you into the room at a previous Thermostat Cultures live event and my interview with Duke basketball legend, two-time NBA world champion, an inspiring human, a good friend, Shane Battier.
If where we look is where we go, then we got to make sure that we look out the windshield, and we got to know what is it we aspire to be different, and what are those values that we want to drive what it is that we want. The sport of basketball has been a huge part of my life, and something I was challenged by some folks as we were coming up to this event. I don't talk about basketball a whole lot, especially with teams and organizations and speaking and stuff. I usually don't talk about basketball a lot. I was lucky to play basketball in high school and college, small college, but was lucky to get to play. And basketball has been a huge life lesson thing in my life. Something that had taught me a lot, taught me how to get knocked down, taught to me how to get back up, hopefully, taught me how to compete, taught me how to be a part of a team, taught me how to be in roles of leadership and begin to try to, how do you get everybody looking out a windshield and going in the same direction? And what does that mean? Basketball is a sport where you can't hide. You're out there. You don't have helmets on. You don't have anything. Like, you're out there, and there's only 5 of you, and you can't hide. And you got to work together. And so basketball has taught me more things, and I've been lucky to have success, and I've been also had moments that have ripped my heart out. But you get back to playing, and you practice, and you try to work on your skill, but as the guy I'm lucky to be bringing up here next, as we were talking actually last night at dinner, maybe the most important thing we work on is right here, is our mindset of how we approach practicing in skill and what we do to try to get better as individual players, but also as teammates. I am thrilled to get to bring up in just a second friend and winner, Shane Battier. If you know anything about Shane Battier's career, he's won everywhere. And I'm going to say things about you that you wouldn't say, but literally everywhere. From high school, okay, he won everything. Goes to Duke, wins the national championship, wins player of the year in the country, where, hey, you're the best, right? High NBA draft pick. Goes to teams and franchises that were losers, traditionally, and takes them to win. Then the Miami Heat out there, LeBron James leaves Cleveland and goes to the Miami Heat. And if you remember this story, right, joins the Miami Heat. And everybody talks about the big 3 with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. And now 3 All-Stars on one team. How could they possibly lose? And if you remember how the story played out, they go in that first year, they get to the finals and they lose. And everybody was asking, how could the 3 best players together, how could they lose? And yet the organization still had some things to figure out. And one of the pieces of the puzzle that they went and got, and again, I'll say it this way, is they went and got Shane Battier and others to come into that team. And there were some things they needed to learn. And then all of a sudden they go on to 2 back-to-back NBA championships where Shane played a significant role. That's the basketball stuff. Now he works for the Miami Heat and is doing some really cool analytics stuff, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But even more important than all of that, what I have appreciated and admired about Shane before I've been lucky to then get to know him and become friends with him is the way he's approached everything. The way he approaches competing, the way he approaches his life, and what he does also. He has his own Take Charge Foundation. The amount of stuff he does in the community and for kids and for helping to provide education and stuff for people that wouldn't necessarily be able to do that. He is a leader and a person that wasn't just phenomenal on the basketball court and is still doing amazing things. So welcome my friend Shane Battier.
Did you get that from my Wikipedia page?
The Wikipedia, man, you're crushing it. So the first thing I'll say is you're probably still a bit shaky. You probably stayed up all night last night, by the way, from losing to my wife in rock, paper, scissors. So, Amy, where are you? She's somewhere back there, yeah. Amy is the rock, paper, scissors champion in this room. She beat Shane Battier last night.
You may know it as Rochambeau. Okay,
Rochambeau.
so do not Rochambeau that lady back there. Losing proposition.
Assessing. We started this morning, and I asked Howard the same question, but when you assess your strengths and you assess all those things I just named, but your role as a leader, what were those strengths, those things that you noticed and learned about yourself came naturally, and what were the things that you knew were challenging to you?
Well, everything I learned about leadership, I learned in kindergarten. Okay, and this is a true story. I'm just a poor kid from Birmingham, Michigan. Never had much. All right, but I was lucky to have amazing parents. And I grew up a little bit of adversity growing up. Okay, first of all, I was a foot taller than everybody else. I told the story last night. When I was 3 years old, I used to follow my mom around the grocery store and say, "Mama, mama, mama," and people would say, "Sandy Battier, you're so patient with your special needs child." Because I looked like I was 6 or 7 years old. And so I was a foot taller than everybody else. My dad's black, my mom's white, in a very white bread part of Detroit. I'm on the east side, the wrong side of the tracks, so I was in charge of putting the pans under the holes in the roof when it rained. Okay, so I always stuck out. I grew up mixed, tall, and poor. Okay, and in an age in kindergarten, you just want to be like everybody else. I was different. On picture day, I got a pick. Everyone got a comb. On Martin Luther King Day, I was expected to know everything about black culture from the dawn of man. I was always different, but there was one place I belonged, and that was at recess, on the kickball court, on the sand lot, on the basketball court. And I realized that, look, when I help my friends win, they want me on their team. And so for me, being part of a team, and being part of a successful team, wasn't like, oh, this is all fun and games. It was a matter of literally social survival for me. Social survival. So I learned this in kindergarten, that if I want to make it, if I want to be loved, if I want to be accepted, my team has to do well. And so for all the plaudits that I've achieved in my lifetime, which I'm humbled and I kind of laugh because it seems like it's somebody else, all of that derived from the success of the team. And that was a really awesome lesson to learn when I was 6 years old.
I know mindset, as we've talked, that mindset is as important to you as anything, and the ethic that you go through even day to day of thinking about, I'll let you say what that is, but how you approach everything and how you approach life impacts the results that end up happening. Talk about your mindset and how you think about that practice daily of what's important to you.
Well, as an athlete, I was lucky. I played 13 years in the NBA, 4 years at Duke, and there's a monotony that all athletes go through, and it's the grind, and it's waking up and lifting weights, and then getting up 500 shots a day, and then icing down, and then going back to the gym that night to get the second workout in. And there's just a monotony. And I'm from Detroit, from the Midwest, and my dad ran a small trucking company for 40 years, and it wasn't necessarily a job that he loved, but he did it. Why? Because he wanted to provide for his family. And so I grew up with that same blue collar assembly line mentality that signifies what the Midwest is all about, right? Yeah. And so my basketball career, my school career, my family career, my social career, my philanthropy career is no different. You show up, you work a tail off, you have a beer at the end of the day, you kiss your babies goodnight, you do it all again tomorrow. And I don't know if I'd be here today if I wasn't from the Midwest and had that mentality, but it's a consistency, and it's about the standards, not of what other people expect from me, but what I set for myself, because no one knows me like me, and my dad didn't tell me many life lessons. We said, look, you can BS a lot of people in life.
Yeah.
One person you can't BS is yourself. You look in that mirror, only you know if you're giving everything you can in that single day. And that was the best lesson my dad ever taught me.
Why this event? Why is this idea of thermostat cultures, or why is this compelling to you at all?
Well, first of all, I think you are an innovator, Jason, and I've appreciated getting to know you and our friendship, and I've read all your books, and I think I can speak for everyone in the room that your words speak to all of us. There's something that you trigger in all of us just about the connection that we create intentionally with each other. Intentional connection. That's what we're talking about. Intentional connection. Look, everyone wants to be part of something, okay? And even if most people can't verbalize the need and the craving to be part of something larger than themselves, when they see it and they feel they're part of it, man, people are elevated. And so it takes people, like the people in this room, to be able to articulate that and say, yeah, look, we can give you what you crave, that intentional social connection, but here's the game plan. And so I think the work that you do is amazing, and it was a layup for me to be here, to be part of that process. Because we talk about the void of leadership today. This is leadership. This is where it starts. And the more we can learn and collaborate amongst industries and ethnicities and just people, we're making people better. I don't care if you're running a nonprofit or running Starbucks. It's about making people better. And so kudos to everyone here for taking a day off from work and really focusing on intentional collaboration, because at the end of the day, it is the difference.
You've been lucky also to play for some amazing coaches. So Coach K, high school, I'm sure, and growing up, I'm sure you had wonderful coaches as well, but Coach K, at Duke is the one that everybody obviously always thinks about. The story that comes to mind is that I heard him say one time of talking about he walks in every single year at the start of every season and says to the team that we don't have rules. You can tell me, I've confirmed this with you.
Yep.
But we don't have rules on the team, but what we do have are standards. And then he looks at them and says, the people on the team, even if it's basically the same makeup of people from the previous year, although it's always a little different, and he looks at them and says, what do you want the standards to be on this team? And together they co-create that. And then that becomes the language, as you heard me saying earlier, the language that drives behavior, how they articulate their values for the year. And say, okay, if that's what you want, then here's what we're going to go get together, right? And then in the NBA, Hubie Brown, right? You've been around some amazing minds and people that have built culture. What do you think you learned the most from these teachers, these coaches, about proactively shaping culture?
Yeah, well, I've been ridiculously blessed by amazing teachers and Sherpas and guides in my journey. Hall of Famers up and down the line. So really was fortunate just to be on these teams. And everyone always asks me, what's Coach K like? What's Coach K like? For those who don't follow college basketball, young man down in Durham, North Carolina, Mike Krzyzewski, the all-time winningest college coach, arguably the greatest coach, for my money, the greatest coach in any sport, anywhere of all time. But he is a master motivator and one of the toughest people I know. And he's not for everybody. And I love what Howard said earlier today about if you start with profits, you're not going to win. And so that was very similar to what Coach K said at Duke. All right, he never talked about, we have to win this game. He never said, like, look, our goal is to win 30 games this year, or the goal is to win the championship. It was implied that was the goal. Yeah. The goal was we need to play Duke basketball. And if we play to our standards, wins follow. And so, beautifully said, Howard, it was no different for the greatest coach in in basketball history, in sports history, the same plan. It is about your standards. It's about the process and the journey. It is not about the end results. And look, there were times when we lost a tough game. We didn't lose many. We were 133-15 in 4 years. Not bad. We didn't lose many games.
Could have done better. I mean, it was 15.
A couple. But there were games where we lost a tough one. And we were expecting fire and brimstone. He said, guys, I love you. We play like Duke basketball. Next play. We bring it in and we break. I'm like, wow, what was that? And there are other games where we play a little poor school like North Carolina A&T or Wofford, and we ended up beating them by 20. And Coach K would come in the gym and say, this was not Duke basketball. We should have won this game by a lot more. We played below what our standards were. And we had to do more, it's called 17 across, which was a really tough drill. The next day, it seemed like half the practice because we did not play to Duke basketball standards. And so it became just habitual. It's not about the scoreboard. It really was not about the scoreboard. It's about how are we playing, how are we communicating, how are we supporting each other, how are we executing. It's Duke basketball. And the lesson he taught us every single day was the power of the next play. All right? And he always said, look, most people waste so much time and so much energy lamenting their mistakes. Now, in basketball, you have literally 100 ways to affect a possession. I can take a shot, I can rebound a shot, I can make a pass, I can dive for a loose ball, I can rebound, I can set a screen, I can run back on defense. Literally, the iterations are endless for how you can affect a play on a basketball possession. And so many people lament their mistakes and waste their energy saying, oh, I missed that shot, I'm no good. Or, oh, I didn't make that play, I turned that ball over, I'm a bum. Instead of getting their ass back on defense and trying to get the ball back, right? Now, a lot of people have the other problem. When they hit that awesome shot after crossing someone over and hitting a fadeaway, they sit there and say, oh, I'm pretty. And they point to the cameras, and they point to the cheerleaders, and they point to their mom in the stands, instead of getting their ass back on defense and trying to do it again. Because the most important play at any given time is the play that is right in front of your face. And the people who have what he called the fastest next play speed, the people who could go on to the next play, whether the previous result was good, poor, indifferent, and attack that next opportunity with a discipline, with an energy, with an enthusiasm, with a focus, with a passion, time in, time again, time in, time again. Those are the people that are not only successful in basketball, but in life. And that was the most important lesson that Coach K ever taught us, next play. So we had a great game. All right, next play.
Which is the windshield.
Which is the windshield.
Are you, okay, I don't care where we've just been, and the rearview mirror is whatever just happened.
Yep.
So what is next?
What's next?
And where we look is where we go. And so if we're caught in the rearview mirror, then all of a sudden they've already scored again, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we've also been talking about aligning. And in my little intro about you, I shared. So the Miami Heat lose. The Big Three comes together. They get to the NBA Finals. Everybody's thinking, of course, they're going to win it all, and they lose. And you come in with a couple other pieces. What did you observe about, in the NBA, aligning egos, money, You know, I think that what you were saying last night, the average NBA player makes $10 million a year.
Yep.
You know, everybody's always been the best.
Yep.
Coming together, and yet you were always somebody who was willing to do the dirty work. You were celebrated for being grit, taking a charge, guarding the team's best player. I think it was 2014, you actually were recognized by the NBA as being the best teammate, right, or whatever the award was called.
Teammate of the year.
Teammate of the year, which you said was maybe the biggest honor in your career. What was that like coming into now a locker room where the big three was supposed to win and all of a sudden they didn't, and then building it to where then the next 2 years you win 2 back-to-back championships?
Well, you know, whether it's in business or it's in sports, it's funny when you go through a tough quarter or you lose a few games, how much clearer the ear canals are, and how much more open you are to suggestions and coaching. It's a strange phenomenon, and it was no different with the Miami Heat. There was a lot of fanfare when the big three got together, and they were talking about multiple championships. When that didn't happen, they took a lot of heat, no pun intended, for the lack of rings. And so I was lucky because I knew if I went there and we won, I get a lot of credit for that. But in fact, I went to a team that the hunger was just unbelievably palpable. The hunger from the first day and the focus. And I was also lucky. It was the first time in my career I went to a team, and I played on 2 other franchises before that, where every single person, from LeBron James on down to our last guy, Eddie Curry, sacrificed money, opportunity, years, shots, playing time to be on the Miami Heat, 1 through 15. So that is a unique team atmosphere that not every manager is lucky enough to face. And so when everyone is sacrificing something, guess what? You are all rowing in the same direction. And that was our theme from day one, sacrifice. And we talked about it every single day. We talked about you have to never assume that everyone understands why we're here. We talked about sacrifice every single day. And we were reminded that we gave up money and playing time and opportunity. So, look, if this doesn't go right, it's on all of us, not just one person. And it's funny how it works out because we had a really good year, but a funny thing happened. We were down to the Boston Celtics, our vaunted rivals, in the Eastern Conference Finals. And we were down 3-2, playing Game 6 in Boston. All right? And everybody knew what was at stake. Everybody. We lose this game in Boston, the big three's a failure.
So now 2 years in a row, you'd be out.
2 years in a row. Yeah. We're playing in we all have new homes next year.
Yeah.
Okay? The Celtics fans came to the gym ready to bury the Heat. So we all knew it, and we felt it. You talk about the pressure, not really pressure, but we felt it. And LeBron James goes out and scores 50, grabs 16 boards, and has about 8 assists. We win the game. We win Game 7, go on to win the NBA Finals in 5 games against Oklahoma City, and everyone says, oh, yeah, I knew they could do it. Of course. All right? So, I'm sure there were times at Starbucks when that line was thin. That line was thin, and people forget about it after you have success, and they think, oh, yeah, of course. No. To really have success, you're going to find at some point with your company, with your people, with your family, or whatever, there is going to be a line where it could go south in an entirely different way really quickly. But if you push through it, you're hailed as something special and new. And the fact is, no, you're just performing to your standards. And only when you come to that point will your standards be revealed. And that's the fun part in building all of this.
You were a player that, in order to have a 13-year NBA career, by the way, you had to adapt. You had always been the best player on a team, and then you get in the NBA, and the further your career goes, you became a person that understood how to adapt, and so you had to learn how to guard the other team's best player. you had to step in. In those NBA finals, those 2 years, I believe you hit 27 three-pointers in just the NBA finals and shot 51% from three-point range. You played a role and were able to put other things aside and step in and do it. Why were you able to adapt and put the ego aside every day?
I never thought about it as putting my ego aside. Okay, my job was not to be the best small forward / power forward for the Miami Heat. My mindset was, as the best small forward or power forward that I can be for the Miami Heat, I will fulfill a role to make us the best we can be. Yeah. All right? I tell people, look, no one ever asked me, Shane, how many points did you score in your career? What's your career high in rebounds and blocks, and what was your game high? I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. I get 2 questions consistently. All right? Where do you keep your championship rings, and how do you decide which one you want to wear?
And the answer is?
Whatever one I want that day. But Jason, the point is, look, when you are a part of a winning team, no one cares what your role is. No one cares what your stats are. No one cares what your title is. They say, oh man, you're part of EY? Respect. You're part of Nationwide? Wow. That's a great company. You have something that maybe I don't know about. I want that. And so that's the value of the brand and working your tail off to build a strong brand that no one's going to care about your stats, your title, your resume. Man, you're part of that team. I need what you have. And I always wear my second championship ring because I hit 6 threes in the NBA Finals in Game 7. So.
Yes, you did. Talk about, I love listening to you talk about your wife.
Yeah.
Talk about your relationship just for a second and the culture of your marriage and how that has evolved.
Yeah. Well, I got the all-American love story. I met my wife when I was seventh grade. We were both 13 years old. I was the new kid in class. I was 6'4" at the time and had a high top fade the first time it was cool. And I saw my wife, and I said, that's the one. That's the one. And it took her a few years to realize that I was the one. But she was my first girlfriend, my first kiss in 9th grade. And we dated in college. I went to Duke. She went to Villanova. And just celebrated our 15-year anniversary. I have 2 wonderful kids, Zeke and Eloise, 10 and 7. And it's amazing to have had a co-pilot on this journey. Because, look, it was a crazy journey. And the sacrifices that you realize when you're climbing that ladder, whatever it is, the person right next to you is essential. We actually do a lot of talks about transition, and we talk about what I went through when I retired. And I'm so lucky that the culture of our family was so strong, and we're lucky both of our parents are still married, so we have amazing role models. Yeah. But I'm not under any illusion for 1 second that my success isn't directly tied to the stability and the happiness and the stimulation that I get when I go home. And my wife lived and died every win and loss, and was there for me with either a hug or a beer at the end of the night. And
sometimes
I wouldn't be here. Sometimes both. And so you're climbing the ladder and you're building your team. Your team is not just your team at work. All right, it starts when you wake up and you kiss your kids in the morning and you kiss your wife goodbye and you come home and get that hug from your dog and your family unit. Like Howard said, if that's not right, you're not going to be right at work. All right? So this is about holistic living, and that means everyone is part of your team.
So Howard is always great about this as well, of even as celebrated as his career has been, of saying, hey, let me let you know about all the times it didn't go well. Let me tell you about the times that I fell short or I wasn't perfect. you look at your resume or your Wikipedia page, and again, you won everywhere. But I know when you and I first met a few years ago, right after you retired, in your words, that was the time, remember this email that you sent, like, in your words, you were lost. Mm-hmm. And you were trying to figure out what was next.
Yeah.
And you were trying to remember, wow, I've already lived all my dreams at a fairly young age. What do I do now?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I was a retiree at 35 years old. And while that sounds awesome, I'm sure a lot of you wishes you could retire at age 35. For me, it was really a new day and sort of a rude awakening. You have to understand, for the past 25 years of my life, I knew what time the bus left, how to dress, how to act. I had a scoreboard every single night. Did I win? Did I lose? Did I overachieve? Did I underachieve? Did I play above my mind? However you slice it, I knew exactly where I stood at all times. And if I didn't know, the media and the fans were there to tell me as well, thankfully. All right? And so for every single day, I knew exactly where I stood, which would, again, there was an amazing monotony, a comforting monotony about that. And all of a sudden, when I left, and I saved my money, and I was as prepared as anybody to transition. I didn't want to play anymore. My body felt good. I could have played a couple more years and waved a towel and got a paycheck, but I just wanted to do something else. So I took a job at ESPN, and I quickly learned that I was not cut out for television. And living in Miami, hopping on a plane in the middle of January to go to beautiful Hartford, Connecticut, where I had to scrape my windshield and then drive an hour and a half west to work till 3:30 in the morning in Bristol, Connecticut, was not my idea of a perfect retirement. And so I left ESPN and was around, probably too much. And as my wife says, I married you for better or for worse, not for lunch. And she said, it's amazing that these walls are still standing after all these years of you being on the road without all of your loving advice on how the household should run. Yeah. And, as a result, I was just looking for an outlet. And I had lost my tribe. I had lost my colleagues. I felt alone, and it started to affect all my relationships. And I was a jerk. I was a jerk to my wife. I was a jerk to my kids, my dog. I was just surly, and it was that search for meaning. And I'm glad I went through it because it allowed me the opportunity. I really hit rock bottom where my wife said, okay, Shane, I'm going to give you 3 options here. Lovingly, she said, you can call the Marriott, you can call your attorney, or you can call this wonderful psychologist, life coach that I found for you. So I said, I'm not a very smart man, but I'm choosing option 3. And I started a journey of self-realization and really looking at myself. And I found that, as is the case with most athletes, for the most part, we're self-made people. We have teammates and coaches, but at the end of the day, it was us who fought through injury, us who fought through adversity. And as the stakes get higher and higher and higher, I started to build walls around myself. Walls. I was in a tower, and there was a moat around that tower. And there were attack dogs and lasers, and I did not allow anybody in to help me when I needed it the most. And that was a story that, as I talked to people who retired and who had left the boardroom and who had left the job in high-power positions, they felt that isolation. And so that's when we first met, and you were amazing in your help to me and how I should think about my life and my goals and my dreams. And what I realized is that I gained amazing strength from collaboration and from people. And even though my career was based upon the work and the shots and the weight room and the conditioning, really my career, my success stemmed from making my team better. And the energy that I got from being part of a successful team. And it didn't have to be a championship team. And so even though I'm the vice president of analytics now, I still look at myself as that person who's using data and other ways to make people better. and not just as a basketball player, but a person. And it's given me amazing purpose and focus going forward, and it really saved me from my dark times.
So I want to talk about the analytics here in a second, but so what do you do back to? So you have this vision now, what you want to be different when you in that time of being lost. Now, what are you doing? So if we talk about again the 6 A's, that if you get to this idea where you realize, okay, I got to paint a different vision for my life, and you begin to articulate it. Okay, this is what I want more of, or less of, and now you had to start putting it into action and start anchoring it so it became habits in your life. What do you do present day to keep making sure that where you look is where you go is not into those darker times, but into out the windshield?
Yeah. Again, Howard spoke about you cannot help others until you're right. And so I sound like a yogi. I was one of those guys that said, meditation, that's, no way. I'll never do it.
Yeah.
And I call my hour of power. I wake up at 5 o'clock every day, and I meditate for 20 minutes. I work out for 20 minutes, and then I reflect and either write in a journal or read for 20 minutes, and my kids are up, and I'm off and rolling. And that gives me just a spiritual breakfast to start my day right. And when I'm up, I feel full, and I can help my kids get off to school. And that's a small victory. And I go to, it's like herding cats, but I feel good when that happens. I go to work, and I'm full, and I'm able to give of myself, of my spirit, and be a servant. And whether that's to the coaching staff and helping them with statistical analysis, or just taking a player and saying, hey, don't worry about that tough game last night. But it starts with the mantra that I write every single day. I am an empathetic person, and I make people better. And I also say I shoot below par in golf because I'm trying to be a scratch golfer, but it's a side note. But it's something I repeat every single day. I'm an empathetic person who makes people better. And it's amazing to remind yourself of something every single day. Don't assume that you even know why you're here. And so to write it and to read it and to see it every single day, guess what? You become that person. And, I'm all about low-cost probe. There's no lower-cost probe than taking 10 seconds to write that out every single day and look at it. All right? So that's my advice for you guys today.
Where you look is where you go.
Where you look is where you go.
So the analytics thing is, I think, fascinating because we're in a world right now in all your companies where analytics are continuously being discussed, are bigger and bigger metrics. We were talking about metrics mania last night.
Yep.
So with the Miami Heat in the role of analytics, of looking at basketball and trying to understand how the game has changed. So we were talking about last night that the game of basketball has changed, but for those of you that aren't thinking about basketball, think about your business, that the game right now is changing. The game of basketball, you probably know this because analytics, you're looking at this.
Yep.
But 10 years ago in the NBA, there was not one team that averaged shooting 30 three-point attempts a game. Mm-hmm. There wasn't one team in the league that averaged shooting 30 three-pointers a game. Not one. Now, half of the league averages between shooting 30 and 42 three-pointers a game. The game has completely changed, which means the types of players, the style, and how you even approach the hiring or drafting, the training or onboarding, the development of skill and strategy, and then the culture of how you attack that has totally changed. Talk about that change that you see in the game right now.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun. And I talked to a few of you who are in the data space as well, and we all are having the same problems. We can just tape our problems and play it, and I'm dealing with that too. But it's a fascinating time. It's the evolution of the game that has been played a certain way for 60 years. It's entirely new. And so the possibilities, it's really intoxicating because the iterations are really endless. But again, why this conference is so important, it's about people. It's about data, but it's about people. And it's about making the data digestible for people. Govind and I had a great conversation last night about making a relatable metric, and that's all analytics are. They're fancy ways to get to some analysis and maybe a thesis. But the key is to make relatable metrics and relatable data to your people, and make it digestible and basic. And it's a challenge because analytics are scary. It's math. Ooh. I come around and some of the players think run from me. Like, oh, let's keep that math away from me. But it's really interesting because I was telling someone earlier, look, if you're a player, you're trying to maximize your financial potential. And so players are getting wise, even if they can't understand the methods and all the metrics that are out there. They know that, look, I better get hip to this a little bit if I want to maximize my potential. So it's when financial survival is at stake, it's amazing how quickly people will adapt. And it's the new frontier of the NBA, but it's still basketball, and it's still people, and the best teams that will have serial success are the teams that marry the data with the collaboration with the culture, and the people and the managers that understand those three facets and can marry them. They're going to be the winners, and I think that's true for every industry.
My oldest son, Will, is back here somewhere. 14 years old. What would you say to your 14-year-old self if you could look back and advice you'd give saying, whatever, whether you were into basketball, guitar, creative writing, or you wanted to start your own business? What advice would you give?
Yeah. My advice, and it's something I learned, unfortunately, probably after I retired, would be ask for help. Be vulnerable. It is not an indictment on your character. It's not an indictment on your intelligence. It's not an indictment on your work ethic. People generally want to help if they can, if they like you. If you're a jerk, not going to help you. So be nice. But if you come humble, it's amazing the doors that open and the help that you'll be able to receive if you just open up and just say, help me.
Let's ask some questions. What questions do you have out there, Shane? Let's fire some at him. What do you got? Anything? And I know you got a ton. So.
Secret bunker. There's a secret bunker, underground somewhere.
Best teammate you had.
I had such amazing teammates. I think of a guy like Yao Ming. He's not just a basketball, but it just could be man of the year every single year in the entire world, and just caring for his teammates. Guys like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, these guys are all world first ballot Hall of Famers. But what made them special to me was just amazing guys. I have a foundation called the Battier Take Charge Foundation, and our big event every year is called Battioke, because I love karaoke, and it's actually a celebrity karaoke contest. And my brothers, LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, they would get up and they would make a fool out of themselves in front of everybody because they can play basketball, but they can't sing. For the kids in my foundation, that's love. That's love, and that's you have amazing friends when they put themselves out there and will embarrass themselves worldwide because they went viral for you. Guys like Luis Scola, Chuck Hayes, just so many. Mike Dunleavy from Duke is probably my best friend. We talk every day. And I was so lucky to have amazing teammates that love me and help me on my journey.
So where I work, I'm dealing a lot around design and how you illustrate not only concepts, but then how you put numbers into that sometimes. So how are y'all using design and visualization to begin to help the players, your staff, whomever, begin to understand all that data?
Yeah, it's a great problem, and we were realizing the importance of having graphic designers and data visualizations that make it digestible. Because we have some great research, but unless you can read some pretty arcane tables, it's no good to anybody. And so that is sort of the next wave of where we're at. We're in the process of hiring app developers and different data architects and people who can just take the research from our lab to the coaches and the players. And it's a whole different challenge of just finding good data, maintaining good data, maintaining good studies, rich studies, and then the last part, probably the most important part, is the delivery to the front lines. And so it's a great problem to try to solve. So if you know any great graphic designers, let me know. We're hiring.
Other questions? Yeah, Mike.
Shane, help me understand, what is the role of a professional sports coach? I mean, how is it that a Belichick or whoever can motivate that level of God-given talent, the hard work and effort that professional athletes put in? How do they motivate Stephen Curry and James?
That's a great question. It's funny. I think the role of the coach is to obviously reach everybody on the roster in the locker room, but their main job is to find the people who are the alphas in the locker room and shape their mindset. Okay? And what I mean by that is I've been on great teams and I've been on bad teams. And the bad teams all have one thing in common. The top guys, the most talented guys, are the least coachable, who show up right before practice starts, who complain about the workload, who do not stay late after practice. All the things you would say, yeah, that guy's not a team player. And the great teams that I've played on, guess what? The best players are the most coachable. They work the hardest. They stay the latest. They take care of their bodies the best. They are great teammates. Everything that makes a great teammate. Well, it's funny. In the locker room, we were talking about this last night. It's probably the most secure, insecure group of people in the world. Athletes, entertainers. And they will always gravitate towards the alpha dogs. And so if your top guys are dogs, guess what? The rest of your guys are going to be dogs. Even the guys who are great, they're going to skew towards the bad side. And when your best guys are the most coachable, guess what? Even the bad guys are going to skew towards being coachable. And so a coach's role is to identify those two or three influencers in a locker room, in basketball and maybe more in football, and really, really shape the mindset of the talent. And I think talent's an operative word. But everyone will defer to a LeBron James. And we look to LeBron. How's LeBron's face? How's his body language? For as much as Eric Spoelstra, try to fire us up and give us direction, if LeBron had bad body language, we all had bad body language. If Paul Gasol had bad body language, we all had bad body language. And so the role of the coach, the role of the manager, is to identify those alpha dogs and really bring them into the fold and make them the beacons of what this organization, this team's about.
You talked about sacrificing a lot. What would you say are the things now to get you where you want to go next, that you're feeling that kind of sacrifice versus being a player, but where you want to go next and what do you feel that sacrifice is going to need to be?
Well, there's a lot of things that I've learned that I have to let go of. I have had an amazing experience and won a lot of championships, but I'd be naive to think just because I've won championships and been part of great teams that's enough to take me to the next third of my life and win that. I talked to David Rubenstein, the great investor and fellow Duke man, and he said, look, gave me great advice. He said, you've won the first third of your life, all right? Child prodigies and entertainers and athletes, you've won the first third of life. Now, the question is, can you win the second third of life in a completely different way than you did before? And when you win that, and you're in your third act, can you win the third act of your life in a completely different way in a new way than your first 2/3. And so you want to live a full life, you win all three sides. And that requires amazing letting go and a humility. And I think I'm humble enough to know that I don't know anything. The only thing I'm certain of is I don't know anything. And so it allows me to seek out teachers and seek out people much smarter than me and with much more experience to draw upon to make my team better, which is a little bit different than the first third when I thought I knew it all. And if I didn't know it, I could work to gain that skill. But there's a constant reminder of look, humble yourself and have the growth mindset that you can learn anything that you need to get to win this next second, third of my life.
Yeah, Kenny.
So you work with at Duke in the NBA. You're with elite. Your workforce is elite.
Yeah.
Everybody's elite.
Yep.
Right. So now you're in the business world. You're working in an office. Maybe not everybody's elite.
Yep.
And you also have
That was so well said, by the way.
Yeah. That was very tactful. Very tactful.
You're a poet.
So how do you adjust to that? Because and diversity of the workforce is obviously a little different too.
Yep. That's a great question. In this new world where you are dealing with less elite talent per se, you have to find common ground. All right, everyone's trying to find a common ground. I don't care what your background is. When you're part of an organization, it's finding what makes that person tick. All right, we talked last night. I'm big into the personality test and personality typing, and I think it saved my marriage, to be honest with you. But understanding people, despite education level or background, everyone has a set of weaknesses and strengths, and what makes them tick, and what will get them to that next level. And the best manager is, I think, Coach K. Coach K is not the best drawer of plays. There are other coaches that have better X's and O's. His best skill is he understands what each person on his team needs and delivers that. For some teammates like Carlos Boozer, he needed a kick in the pants every single day. And so he kicked Carlos Boozer in the pants every single day. For me, if he kicked me in the pants and questioned my toughness or my intelligence or how hard I played, I'd look at him and be like, Coach, we all know I'm smart, I play hard, and I'm tough. But Coach K challenged my ability to handle the mantle of leadership and be the next great player at Duke. And that was like, them's fighting words. All right, I'm going to show you every single day that I can handle the mantle of leadership. And so, as a leader, that's your skill. It's about people, and identifying what that button is on those people, and it's especially important on the high variant talent level people. What makes those high talent people tick, and what makes those low talent people tick. And if you can click that button, your group is going to be that much stronger.
What did that next year look like after the very successful championship? What did the team?
The toughest part of winning a championship is winning the second championship. Why? Because you are always fighting the human condition. All right? When you're at Starbucks, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You hope and you pray that, okay, we think we got a good idea. We are working really hard. We think we can make it, but you don't know until you make it. And then you're like, oh, crap, it took that? So all of a sudden, when you're starting over in your next venture or your next team, you're saying, man, all that sacrifice, all that work, all the pain that I suffered to get to that level, I got to do it again? And so you're always fighting the human condition after you win your championship, whatever that championship is. And it's the people that can rationalize that and say, look, I know what it's going to take, and I'm not going to assume that the effort I gave last time is going to be good enough this time, and I got to work a little bit harder and a little bit smarter, a little bit more efficient. Those are the people that win back-to-back. Those are the people that win multiple championships year after year after year. All right, so when you win your championship, you got to think, do not let the human condition win. So respect anyone who wins back-to-back. Respect.
So Ken, who will just, a Manhattan Jasper, by the way, played at Manhattan.
Nice.
Go for it, bud.
So a couple questions for you. This is great, by the way. Thank you. I personally have always watched you and your career, and just thought you've been stellar in so many respects. So I appreciate this. Athletes of today in the NBA, because that's where you are, when you think about the course of your X number of years, do you see a difference in the quality, type, and individual player today versus when you grew up and folks you play with? It appears that they're different. I'm getting old, maybe that's why.
Yeah. I would say the biggest difference is in the education of maximizing your physical tools. Okay, so players today, I mean, even like in middle and high school, they understand the importance of working out and stretching and yoga and nutrition and recovery. You know, when I was a rookie, there was a tub of beer in the locker room after the game, and people would sit around and have beer all day. That's a no-no nowadays. And so as a result, these young players come in, and they're so athletic. They're so athletic, and they're so skilled. And the time that people devote to working on their skill, they don't play as much. They don't play as much, but they work on their games more. And as a result, as a talent evaluator now, we see guys that are super, super skilled, but they don't know the game. And they don't know how to handle adversity when you're down 2 and you need a certain shot, and they go back to what the narrative is, and I got to take this tough, crazy shot. And so the challenge now is we have the best athletes we've ever had. We have skill players that are as good as any players we have in history, but they don't know the basic tenets of the game. And so teaching them that and taking them back to remedial basketball concepts sounds crazy for the NBA. That's our challenge.
I see that. That's great. I got this question from last year's, but I'll ask you. Right now, if you were to write a book, what would the title of that book be and why?
We're going to hold you to this, by the way.
Well, I told the story last night. It's called Touch the People. If you were at dinner last night, I'm sorry, Ken, you missed my story about, go in
timing
and
with the Me Too movement is
it's not appropriate.
We're
talking about a social...
We're just talking through the timing of it.
Metaphorical social touch.
Yeah.
A metaphorical
don't literally
touch
go
to
do
people.
this.
Yes. A social touch. It wasn't. It would be called Touch the People with an asterisk, metaphorically speaking. When you give people of your spirit and your energy, it's amazing what they give back to you. And as a leader, as just a citizen of the world, when you offer someone that metaphorical, social touch, that's how change happens, that's how positivity happens, and that's how you make a difference.
Thank you. That's how you become an empathetic person who makes people better. Thank you.
Excellent.
So you just made a really interesting point before that on, a lot of data and analytics are driving you to focus on specific skills. And then you kind of countered that, even though being an analytics guy, that you need this cross-discipline skill set. So how do you balance that with what the numbers say? You need specialized team members with cross-discipline skills and ability to handle adversity.
Well, I think right now with the current state of data analytics, it's a tool. And the way that I look at it is it's a risk mitigation tool. It's not the fountain of youth. It's not the answer to all my ills. But it's a risk mitigation tool that will keep me away from the bad decisions. Okay? So I explain to people, like, I played basketball like I play blackjack. All right? I don't know if anyone's played blackjack in this room. All right? So you're at the table, and you are dealt a face card, and the dealer's showing a 15. What do? You double down, right? You double down. Why? Because mathematically, that gives you the best chance to maximize your earning for that one single hand, right? Now, you don't double down when you got a 13, right? Why? because there's a good chance you're going to get a face card and you're going to bust. So the math says do not double down. Well, it's no different. When I'm guarding Kobe Bryant, and I know when Kobe Bryant goes to his right hand and shoots a shot inside the painted area, that is when you add up the makes, the misses, the turnovers, the free throws drawn, free throws made, missed, it's a 62% shot. And when he goes left and takes a pull-up jumper outside of the painted area, when you factor in makes, misses, turnovers, fouls drawn, free throws made and missed, it's only a 42% shot. Now, you don't need to be a math major at Duke to know that, as a defender, sending him to that 42% shot is better than sending him to that 62% shot. And if I do that over a large sample size, guess what? I'm creating value for my team. Okay? And so basketball, the way I look at it now, it's a series of trade-offs. And if you can make a positive expectation decision on every trade-off that you can find, guess what? You're putting EV plus in your pocket. And all those points add up. Okay, most people think that the final score is how many shots you make in a game. That's false. The final score in the game is the offensive rebound you grabbed here, plus minus the turnover here, plus running back on defense, plus getting that loose ball, plus making that three-pointer. All those, again, hundreds of plays you make in a basketball game are worth a value. And all those plays add up to the final score. And if you make enough positive expectation plays, guess what? You're going to score more points at the end of the game than your opponent. So that's the way you have to look at data in basketball and in sports. It's not the answer, but it keeps you away from the really bad decisions and the minus EV plays.
Jim.
I want to get back to your back-to-back championships. And same with get back to the back-to-back championships. It's the same in business. You have a good year, you want to have another good year. So you talked about you worked hard, you worked smart, you were effective. But if you would, could you talk to maybe the locker room or the bench talk or after the game as far as how do you keep the teammates from not being complacent, and say, well, because it happened last year, we had these things in place, it's got to happen again, right? So how did you avoid complacency?
Pat Riley has a great saying. He says, look, you don't want 12 milk drinkers on your team. It's okay to have a couple guys drink Jack. All right? It's okay to introduce an element of chaos to your team. Controlled chaos. Okay? Especially in a situation where there might be some complacency. It's okay to throw in a wild card to keep people on their toes and to shake them up. Now, the great teams like Golden State, they're trying to manufacture things to be worried about. All right, they're so good. Steve Kerr is saying, "Oh no, this team really could beat us." And everyone knows, no one's going to beat the Warriors this year if they're healthy. And so, again, that's a skill of a manager, is to understand and have the pulse of your people that, okay, they're a little complacent right now. It's time to add a little bit of controlled chaos, whether that's in the form of personnel or projects, or you come in and you just ream the office. Steve Kerr, I read a great story that I copied because I'm pretty mild mannered, all right, and I played hard, but everyone was pretty, everyone knew I was even keeled. Okay, so I made it a point when I felt I needed to let people know what I was about, where I would come in one day and there'd be a foul. I went to the basket, I got fouled, they didn't call it. I would just go berserk. And I would start cussing, I would take the ball racks, I would start punting the ball, I'd tip over the water cooler, and I'd walk out of practice. And people would say, "Whoa, don't mess with Battier." And it was completely calculated, because I just wanted people not to be completely safe and secure around me. I always wanted that element that, wow, okay, I think I know Shane, but there's something about him that I don't want to mess with. All right, so that's a good trick for you guys to take to the office. All right, when your bosses.
Hey, Jim, on Monday you come in. You make sure Randy's behind you. By the way, knock Fitzpatrick out of the way. Just kick the cooler.
Let them know. Not too often now, all right? Don't tell them I sent you, all right? But every once in a while, when you feel that people are taking you for granted, you make a stink, because unfortunately the squeaky wheel gets the oil, all right? And if you do that calculated enough, it's very effective. Well, Kobe Bryant was the toughest player, just from a mental standpoint. All right, I was slow, and I couldn't jump, and I wasn't very quick, but I wore people down mentally. You know, I wore people down.
Did you say 13-year NBA?
Relatively speaking, and I knew that I could wear them down, knowing their weakness. I knew their weaknesses better than they did. But Kobe was the one guy I could never wear down mentally. And I did the old rope-a-dope, and I said, I can't guard Kobe Bryant. He's so much better than me. And for most guys, it would work that I would stop them, and they get frustrated. Because it's like, how does this Battier guy stop me? But for Kobe, it never worked. And so I always respected him from a mental standpoint that I could never crack him. He was the one guy I couldn't crack. Kevin Garnett. He was, but everyone was like, KG, be quiet. It's like, well, it was toothless. It was toothless. My man UD, one of my favorite teammates of all time, from Miami. He's a foxhole guy. If the stuff goes, he is yeah. If something goes down at 2:30 in the morning, UD would be one of the first guys I would call because he would be there. And it's good to have those guys. It's good to identify those people in your group. If the stuff goes down at 2:30, who are your foxhole guys? And everyone has one or two of them, and it's important to always stay on the right side of those people. All right.
Who scares you in the NBA today? Who would you?
It's similar to I caught LeBron and Durant when they were young, but like those guys are so good. Like Durant, literally, you can't do anything because the guy's 7 foot tall and he shoots over you. Yeah. So like, even if I send him to his weakness, he's I read a study. He's arguably the greatest regular season scorer in NBA history, according to some metrics. And so just a monster. Regular season.
What happens in the playoffs?
He's top 10.
Okay. Why?
Just the shot quality changes, where he gets his shots, how he gets his shots, the efficiency, and when he makes his shots in a game situation. He's only top 10 greatest player in the country in the world. So, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Something you said earlier about the shift from the first third of life that stuck with me is you had a scoreboard every day.
Yep.
That's an element of feedback for you every day, right?
Yep.
So how did you create elements of feedback in the second third of life for yourself? Because I think we're all in that boat more than having a scoreboard every day.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I really lean on that makes all the sense in the world is every big corporation has a board of directors. And what's the board's purpose? To give unbiased advice based on your experience on how to best run the business. Why don't people do that? Why don't people have their own personal board of directors made up of people from all walks of life that can give you their life experience and give you real feedback, just like you give a company's board, about where you're doing great and where you're really messing up. And so I rely on my board of directors, and I meet with them. I try to meet with them once every quarter, like a board report, and just have breakfast. And you try to have honest, open feedback. They range from close friends to business associates. But it's been an amazing, sounding board for me and a scoreboard. My wife is the ultimate board of directors. She's the chairman of the board, and she lets me know when I'm really messing up. But it's great to have independent people to give you honest feedback that you don't take offense from, and it comes from a pure place. And again, you can't be the best for your group unless you are operating optimally. And it's hard sometimes to score yourself. And so, after you leave here today, start to think about your personal board of directors. and tell them, look, I need you. I need your honest feedback. This will help me in every facet of the life, and I promise you that person will be honored and be thrilled to be part of your board.
You spoke on the Warriors a little bit ago. What's your thought on the free agent market these days? The guys picking where they go and demanding trades.
Yeah. Well, I can't. Since I'm an employee, I can't speak to any specific free agent. But it's an era of as long as it's collectively bargained, players have figured out how to utilize the collective bargaining agreement, and they're wielding that power, which is collectively bargained. So it's as long as it's in the document, it's allowed. Yeah.
Shane, imitation being the greatest form of flattery. As I think about Coach K, and I think about coming from a program that, as you know, the Blue Devils were hated everywhere other than they were in North Carolina. I've always heard people that hated it, and I started watching them so much because I hated them, and turned out I never missed a game, and now I got to say I always watched Duke basketball. I wonder, from knowing this coach so well and seeing him have an impact on players, you talk about Boozer being a harder guy to coach maybe than you were, as a parent or as a leader within your organization, what are the things about him that are, you think, why isn't everybody doing what he's doing, and when do you laugh and say, that didn't come out of my mouth, I know I borrowed that one or stole that one right from Coach K?
Yeah, it happens more and more. I think I'm becoming my coach. Coach K has an amazing malleability, where he really comes in every year and says, "Look, I got to reinvent this team. I got to reinvent the way I talk to them. I got to reinvent the way that we connect. All right, we have certain principles that are non-negotiable every single year. We look each other in the eye when we communicate. All right, we talk about the fist." All right, he always talks about the fist, and it was like, all right, the fist story again. The fist is, look, the basketball team is like a fist, all right? When 5 guys work together, you start throwing this baby around, you cause some real damage. But if one person is off the page and not with the other 4 guys, what happens when you start throwing this baby around? You break your hand, all right? And so I tell that story to my son. He's like, okay, Dad, I get it. But just for as great as he is and as many games as he's won, it'd be super easy. You see that amongst other coaches. This is my way, and I wrote books on it, and so this is what we're going to be. But the ability to adapt and to change, at 73 years old, which Coach K is an amazing, amazing, amazing example for all of us. The best of the best is still looking for ways to evolve, improve, and to learn.
Your charisma is palpable, and I'm curious if you ever thought about coaching, or why you went the data analytics route rather than the coaching route.
Well, thank you. I wasn't good enough to be non-charismatic. All right, if I was better, I'd probably be a nerd. Yeah, when you're not as good, you got to have other tricks. I don't think I could be a coach because I think that I knew what it took to be successful. And on the front lines, if I didn't get that from my players, it would literally crush me. I coached my son's baseball team. And I drank a lot of wine that season. And my son's 8-year-old, and it was the greatest experience of my life to play for my dad, who taught me lessons of hustle and great sportsmanship and supporting your teammates and chatter on the baseball field. It was never about technique, hitting a curveball. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that for my son. I'm going to be that. I'm going to be what Big Ed was to me. And I spent more time, guys, put your phones down in the locker room. Like, come on, let's hustle. Come on, no, there's no Fortnite right now. Come on, guys. And so I don't think I'm coaching material, at least on the athletic field. So we'll see. We'll see if things change.
You hit this out of the park, and my wife still beats you in rock, paper, scissors. This is, I could literally do this all day. So awesome to have you here. thrilled you're here, thrilled to be able to call you a friend, and you can be on my team, buddy.
All right.
Shane Battier.
Guys.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast platform or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of this conversation. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or this kind of development would add value to your team or organization, we hope you'll contact us at www.jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we all are ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.